vegetables have always been an essential part of Mexican cuisine, whether you're talking about street food or high-end dining in a restaurant like Siis. Here in the middle of an enormous metropolis like Mexico City, it's not always easy to get your hands on ingredients that are locally grown. But these days, some of the most contemporary chefs in Mexico are not only using vegetables in unique ways, but they're also finding unique ways to source them. Today, I'm meeting with the chef owners of Kaah, Siis, Israel and Alfredo, in an area that's on the outskirts of Mexico City. It's called Xochimilco. Now, on the weekends, tourists come out to Xochimilco to take boat rides on the colorful rafts that they call trajineras. But these ancient canals also surround small man-made agricultural islands called chinampas. Now, these were created almost a millennium ago during Aztec times, and they were designed to utilize the fertile soil and the water from the canals to grow crops on the islands. In recent decades, many of the chinampas in the surrounding canals have been abandoned and neglected. But today, people like Antonio MURAD of Proyecto Yolcan are working with local chefs to help make these chinampas productive again. So talk to me about the model that you're trying to create here in terms of like smaller production.
Well, we're trying to make every chinampa sustainable by itself.
And when you use the word chinampa, do you mean a plot of land that is surrounded by canals?
Yes.
But there's all different sizes of chinampas?
There's all different sizes.
Okay. So you're trying to make each one of them sustainable. Is that ecologically sustainable or financially sustainable?
Both. If you don't work in both themes, then it's not sustainable. We asked chefs what they want to grow. They make a list. We see what it's viable and what it's not. And we try to give it to the chinampero who has the most experience
with that kind of thing. So do you guys ever learn anything from the chinamperos, that they come and bring you products that maybe you haven't ever worked with before that they grow?
Yeah, there are many things that grow here naturally, like quelitas, for example.
Right.
So they grow here wildly, right? So it's easy to pick that kind of stuff here. And maybe we're not really aware of how can we use this kind of stuff, right? But once we have it, it's just amazing how you can just work with all these kind of products we will only find here.
These unique agricultural plots are giving chefs control over not just what is grown, but how it's grown. Here they have a very unique process of growing from seed. It includes adding poison ivy plants at planting to act as a hormone that accelerates growth. And then they enrich the soil with everything from manure and charcoal to molasses, yeast, and rice bran. So it's like you've got your recipe for the earth that you're going to grow in, the same way that we'd have a recipe for something in the kitchen.
Making soil.
Yeah, they're making soil so that they can make vegetables, so that we can make dishes.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh, that's beautiful. And sweet. Super sweet. This is where you get all the ideas as you come out and you taste it and you think about what's going to go with what.
And then at the end, I think what we're trying to do is like, how can you express what you're seeing in a dish?
Of course. You know? You taste it and you go, where can it take me? I think it's really easy to dismiss sort of farm to table, or in this case, chinampa to table cooking as being trendy. But to me, anytime a chef can connect directly to the source of their ingredients, number one, they're more creative. Number two, they respect the food more because they're more involved in it and the producers that have brought that to them. Deep in the heart of Mexico City is another organization aiming to change the way local residents think about their food. This is ROMA VERDE, a kind of green community center in the center of the city. They host all variety of cultural events from theater to cooking classes, but it's all focused around the garden. México. Pues, ¿cuál es la idea de Roma Verde?
Bueno, somos un grupo que estamos impulsando la permacultura urbana en la Ciudad de México.
Ah, permacultura.
Entonces, este es como un nodo en donde estamos haciendo agricultura urbana. Queremos empezar a hacer que la gente en sus casas...
Entonces no es solamente agricultura urbana, es como un taller para aprender a hacer la agricultura urbana.
Exactamente. Y pues bueno, se hace toda una actividad gastronómica y también con talleres para niños en el huerto. Y estamos dándole a los niños para que se lleven sus macetitas ya germinadas con su plántula y bolitas de semillas, seed bombs, les estamos enseñando a hacer para que hagan todo este trabajo de guerrilla market, de guerrilla gardening en la ciudad.
Para que aprendan la parte el papel que tenemos nosotros en la comida, en todo el círculo de la vida.
Así es, ¿no? Y bueno, además en torno a la comida pues se dan de los mejores encuentros y conversaciones y pues estamos tratando de fomentar aquí.
From downtown Mexico City to downtown Chicago, I'm at the Green City Market. Now, this is a market that I helped found a dozen or so years ago with a group of chefs and other food people here in Chicago. And why did we want to do it? Well, I know my motivation. It's because fresher is always better, and local is always fresher. There's another component, and that's diversity. When I work with local farms, it gives me the opportunity to work with a lot of different products because they can grow things specially for me. And of course, it keeps me in contact with the earth because getting to know a farmer means getting to know that person's farm. So people look at all this incredible abundance that's around them, and this market has grown by leaps and bounds over the last few years. And they think, oh, I could work this fruit into a beautiful American pie, or these vegetables and herbs into a great pasta dish. But rarely do they talk about Mexican food. Can you make Mexican food from the farmer's market? Absolutely. Before the farmer's market era that we live in now, when I was a kid, we used to go out into the countryside and stop at these little farm stands, and they would be selling some carrots and potatoes and onions and I don't know, maybe a green pepper or two. Zucchini, of course, was always in those, but we live in a completely different time now. I mean, just look at all of these different kinds of peppers and chilies. There's 15 different varieties right here. Now, of course, they all originated in Mexico, sort of, but then they became naturalized in their own countries. So we see ones that we associate with Japanese cooking here. These are associated with Italian cooking, of course, the Mexican ones, the poblanos and the serranos and jalapenos. And the same exact thing is true of all the squashes. Those all came from Mexico too. But we associate them with now their country of current origin. These, of course, are my favorites from Mexico. This is the tatumi squash, but just look at all of this incredible variety that's here. Of course, we got the Romanescos that we think of as very Italian, as well as the zucchinis and the patty pans and these beautiful, well, I think of them as sort of an American yellow summer squash. Each one of these has a different taste and a different texture, which makes going to the farmer's market so exciting. Okay, Lainey, remember Tacos El Güero in Mexico City and the great taco filling with summer squash and roasted poblanos and corn?
And cream.
Of course, and cream, like the best taco filling ever. Well, that's what I got the ingredients for at the farmer's market. So, Lainey, I'm going to ask you to grill roast these poblanos. Grill roasting them gives the absolute best flavor, kind of smoky and nice, while I cut up the summer squash into slabs so that you can grill that next.
Perfect.
Lainey roasted the poblanos until they were completely blackened on the outside, put them into a bowl and covered them with a kitchen towel. Then, while she was grilling the zucchini till it was almost tender, I sliced a large white onion and chopped a few cloves of garlic. I cut some kernels of corn off the cob. When the poblanos had cooled enough that I could handle them, I rubbed off the blackened skin, tore them open, pulled out the seed pod, and then ran them briefly under running water just to get any stray bits of skin or seeds off of them. Last thing was to slice them into thin strips. Okay, let's finish this up. So while Lainey was caramelizing these onions and the garlic together in the little bit of olive oil, I chopped up the grilled summer squash, and I'm just going to slide it into the same big skillet. And Lainey, why don't you put the corn and the roasted poblanos in there? Oh, that's so beautiful. This is like the pure essence of summertime. Mexican oregano,
that smells so good.
Leaf crumbled over the top of it, and I think the part that you've been waiting for.
Ooh,
now
la
the crema.
crema.
In goes a few big spoonfuls of this cultured cream. It's sort of like the Mexican equivalent of a creme fraiche. Well, I'll let you stir that in while I give it a nice sprinkling of salt here. It's glorious. It's just plain glorious.
It smells so good.
Now we're gonna let that simmer for a minute, just until the cream is reduced enough to lightly coat the vegetables.
So we're also going to make another kind of grilled vegetable taco. This one is with mojo de ajo. It's that delicious roasted garlic bath that's so good on grilled vegetables. Now the easiest way to do that is to roast garlic in its skin for about 15 minutes over medium heat. Then you let it cool and you can just peel it right out of the skin. Super easy. So all of this 2 heads of garlic here is going to go into the food processor, along with about a cup of olive oil, half of a lime, and just a little salt. I'm gonna put the lid on this food processor here and process it till it's just about smooth. That looks about good. So this is gonna make a lot more mojo de ajo than we need for our grilled vegetable tacos today. So it's something that's really good to keep in your refrigerator. I always have some in mine, and I love it on pasta.
But today we're gonna be doing it on a different kind of summer squash. This is the yellow squash, and instead of boiling it and grilling it, I just actually charred this. Just gave it a little salt and charred it until it was completely soft. I also have these yellow chilies, or what sometimes we call banana peppers here in Mexico, called guero chilies, roasted, peeled, and then cut those up. Those are spicy, and I'm going to add those too, but people should just add them to their own discretion because it's pretty good stuff if you like hot, okay? So this we're going to chop up into pieces that will be about right, 1/2 inch for making tacos. Scoop that into a skillet here. This I'm going to reheat right before I serve it. You want to scoop in also a couple of spoonfuls if you like a lot of that garlic flavor. I'm going to say that's just about right, about 1/4 cup or so, maybe just a hair more. And the roasted peppers to go in there. We're going to serve this with some fresh cheese on the top of it. It's going to be super delicious.
Sounds good.
This looks so delicious. Now I use summer squash for it, but you could use eggplant, fennel, butternut squash, mushrooms, all kinds of things are really delicious in this kind of a preparation. Different kinds of chilies, obviously, too. Then I'm going to sprinkle this with a little bit of garnishing cheese like Mexican queso añejo. You could use Parmesan, a handful of cilantro leaves, and you got a really delicious mouthful. Bill Shore's the mastermind behind our production garden for our restaurant. Tell us what we need to know about growing Swiss chard, because I love Swiss chard. I love its flavor. I think it's really beautiful. It's, I think, easy to grow, but you tell us, what do we need to know?
Yes, Rick, it is easy to grow and produces a lot. It's really nice because as an edible ornamental plant, it not only produces well, but harvesting does not diminish the beauty of the plant.
So let's talk about
really
that
ideal.
ornamental. Where do you suggest people grow it?
You could grow it on a border. You could use it to replace some annuals in the flower border, things like geraniums.
Yes. Cool.
You could replace with it and you get something edible.
Can you also grow it in pots?
You can grow it in a pot. If this is a plant that
This is the plant you want to grow.
Yes, this is a plant will grow well in a pot. Get a big pot, a deep pot.
Okay, well, we got a pot
you got that
here.
one there? Great.
Okay, because you need to see what this, just imagine this on your back porch filled with beautiful, different colored chard, because it comes in lots of different colors.
Right.
But this would be so beautiful, sitting there looking like an ornamental, and then you can harvest it.
Yeah, you could even start this inside. It will grow indoors, but the thing I like about this is a 10-inch deep pot. This plant does need more depth of soil.
Okay.
So don't put it in a really tiny pot. Put it in a bigger pot so you can get nice big plants just like this. Nice lush plants that you can harvest and look at and appreciate.
And you know what I love about it is that it has uses two ways in the kitchen. You can just harvest the small little leaves and put them in with your salad mixture, but you can also harvest then the large leaves and use it as a cooking green in stir fries. You can simmer it. You can do all kinds of beautiful things with chard. And look at these colors. They're so beautiful. This is the plant to grow if you haven't really experimented with growing plants much. Now, I know when a lot of people think about tacos, they're thinking about ground beef or maybe steak or chicken, but I've got another kind of taco in mind for you. And yes, it's going to use some greens from the garden, but it's going to be greens in a red chili sauce with some black beans. Now, I think those are just absolutely a match made in heaven when you think of all of those flavors together. But the first thing that we have to do is to create a red chili sauce, and I'm going to use guajillo chilies for that. These are the smooth-skinned chilies. You can find them at practically any Mexican grocery store. They, of course, have to be cleaned of all their seeds to start with. So you pull off the stem end of it and then just open them up. I can use my finger to open them like that and shake all the seeds out. If there's a seed pod stuck at the top, pull that out. And then once all of these are cleaned, I'm going to toast them in oil in a large saucepan. I'm just going to turn them until they start to change colors and they fill the air with their beautiful toasty chili aroma. Then all of those toasted chilies get collected in a bowl, run under some hot tap water, just enough to cover them nicely, lay a plate on the top to keep them submerged, and let them rehydrate for 20 or 30 minutes until they're very supple. Then with about 2/3 cup of that soaking liquid, we're going to combine all of those chilies in the blender. Now there's 3 flavorings that I'm going to put into this red chili sauce. One is garlic, just raw garlic in this case. Those are going to go into the blender along with a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. I know that's not a common seasoning in a lot of Mexican dishes, but it goes beautifully with the guajillo chilies. And of course, the necessary little bit of Mexican oregano. This is bought in the whole leaf form so that you can crush it and release all of its natural aroma. Then the top goes on here, and we're going to blend it until it becomes smooth. Now we have to cook this chili sauce. So we're going to return the chili toasting pan with the oil still in it to a medium-high heat. Add the chili puree all at once, pressing it through a medium mesh sieve. Stir it for 4 or 5 minutes until it's reduced to the consistency of tomato paste. This is really important to achieve the rich, round flavor and bring out the natural sweetness. Then add 3/4 of a cup of water to it. Turn the heat way down and let it simmer for a few minutes. You can make these tacos with any cooking green, really. I particularly like it with this black Tuscan kale, or what's called dinosaur kale. But I just picked this beautiful rainbow chard out of the garden. So I think today that's what's called for this. The stems of the chard will give you a different kind of texture, but I usually like to treat them a little bit differently. So I'll cut them crosswise. They make beautiful confetti looking pieces here in our finished dish. And then the Swiss chard itself, I'm going to cut crosswise into about 1/2-inch pieces. All of that will collect together here on this baking sheet. I've got a can of black beans that I'm going to put with it, and then everything gets simmered together in that beautiful red chili sauce. First, to season the sauce, it's going to take about a teaspoon of salt. And then this is the part that a lot of people just don't understand. When you're working with red chili sauces like this, if you want to bring out the natural fruitiness of those chilies, you're going to need to add just a little bit of sugar. So I'm putting in about a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. Stir that. Now in goes the can of black beans, drained of their canning liquid. And then all of the charred first stems go in, and then all of the sliced leaves. Now you'll notice that there's just enough of that sauce to coat those greens, and it'll take a few minutes for them to wilt beautifully into that sauce. And you're gonna have, I think, one of the most soul satisfying, well, in fact, I think it's like soul food. That's exactly what the flavors are here. Red chili sauce with beans and greens. This filling is particularly delicious in tacos that are sprinkled with a little bit of fresh cheese, queso fresco. Even some fresh goat cheese is really delicious. Everybody, welcome. We finally got our little taco party rolling here. Okay, so there's 3 different taco fillings, and these are more like tacos de cazuela from Mexico City. So, folks, here are the warm tortillas. I'm going to start passing these around, and you guys can dig in and create your own special taco.